the Roman Empire grows to span thousands of miles.
2,000 years ago, Rome wasn't just a city. It was the heart of a civilization that stretched from the windswept moors of Britain to the deserts of Egypt. Its armies marched under the unwavering symbol of the eagle, its roads connected continents, and its laws shaped the foundation of justice for centuries to come. Rome was more than an empire. It was an idea, an unshakable belief that one city could unite the known world under its banner of order, culture, and power. But what if I told you that the Rome we see in ruins today could have been something far greater? Imagine those same roads, spanning the length of Europe and Asia, not as crumbling relics, but as highways, buzzing with carriages propelled by early machines. Picture the aqueducts, those majestic arcs in the sky, not as remnants of an ancient genius, but as arteries pumping water to thriving megacities built on Roman innovation. What would our world look like if the Roman Empire had never fallen? Perhaps it's hard to grasp just how vast and unstoppable Rome seemed to those who lived under its rule. It wasn't just the size of the empire, it was the system. A network of interconnected provinces, bound together by shared currency, language, and culture. People living thousands of miles apart could trade goods, share ideas, and travel freely, all under the watchful eye of Rome's legions. Even as the empire stood at its peak, cracks were forming beneath the surface. Political corruption, economic strain, and external threats loomed like dark clouds over its golden age. 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire fell, not with a dramatic explosion, but with a slow and steady unraveling. Collapse ushered in a period of chaos and fragmentation, leaving the West in what history calls the Dark Ages. What if that unraveling never happened? What if Rome had found a way to survive, to adapt, to endure? Imagine a world where the eagle of Rome continued to soar, unchallenged. What kind of society would have emerged from centuries of uninterrupted Roman rule? Would it have given birth to a golden age of progress, or a world where freedom and diversity were extinguished in the shadow of a single, eternal empire? This is not a simple question. The journey through the crossroads of history, the choices made or avoided, reshaped the fate of civilizations. So, join me as we explore a world that might have been a world where Rome never fell. For 2,000 years ago, Rome stood as the center of the world. It wasn't just a city, it was an empire, a civilization whose influence reached across continents, languages, and cultures. From the icy frontiers of Britannia to the sun-baked deserts of Egypt, the Roman Empire was a force that shaped everything it touched. Its roads connected lands far and wide, its armies conquered vast territories, and its ideas laid the foundation for much of the world we know today. No empire, no matter how mighty, is eternal. Even Rome, with its unparalleled achievements, could not withstand the forces that would ultimately lead to its fall. That raises a question that haunts historians and dreamers alike. What if it hadn't? To understand what we lost when Rome fell, we need to understand what it was at its peak. At its height in the 2nd century AD, under the reign of emperors like Trajan and Marcus Aurelius, Rome controlled nearly 5 million square kilometers of territory. Population was estimated at over 70 million, a staggering number for the ancient world. It wasn't just a collection of conquered lands. Rome was a system. Roads carried not just soldiers and merchants, but ideas. Its laws provided a sense of order that unified diverse peoples under a shared structure. Its aqueducts delivered fresh water to millions, a feat of engineering that remained unmatched for centuries. As with all great things, the seeds of Rome's decline were sown even in its triumphs. The 3rd century AD, cracks began to appear. Empire had grown so vast that managing it became increasingly difficult. Imagine trying to govern a landmass stretching from Scotland to the Persian Gulf, with no modern technology, no instant communication. Every decision from the emperor in Rome took weeks, sometimes months, to reach the farthest corners of the empire. This lack of control led to chaos. During what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century, Rome had no fewer than 26 emperors in just 50 years. 26, most of them weren't chosen through peaceful succession. They seized power through violence, betrayal, and civil war. Stability, once Rome's greatest strength, was slipping through its fingers. At the same time, external threats loomed larger than ever. Tribes from beyond Rome's borders, tribes like the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, and Vandals, saw the empire's weaknesses and pressed their advantage. Some came seeking refuge, fleeing even more fearsome enemies like the Huns, who swept across Europe like a storm. Others came as invaders, driven by the promise of plunder and conquest. 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Visigoths, under their king, Alaric, marched into Rome itself. The first time in 800 years, the Eternal City was sacked. Imagine what that must have felt like for the people of Rome. A city that had always seemed untouchable, protected by the gods themselves, was reduced to flames and rubble. It wasn't just a loss of life or property, it was a loss of identity. Yet, Rome didn't fall in a single catastrophic moment. Sacking of the city, just one event in a long series of declines. The empire limped on for decades, weakened by internal corruption, economic collapse, and constant invasions. The middle of the 5th century, its territories had shrunk dramatically. Provinces like Gaul and Hispania were no longer under Roman control. Even Italy, the heart of the empire, was fragmented and vulnerable. In 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire came to its official end. Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of the West, a mere teenager, was deposed by Odoacer, a barbarian chieftain. It was a quiet, almost anticlimactic conclusion to a story that had spanned over a millennium. Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, continued for another 1,000 years. The West was lost. Then came the aftermath. What followed was a period known to history as the Dark Ages, a time of fragmentation, isolation, stagnation. The great Roman roads that had connected Europe fell into disrepair. Trade routes dried up. Cities that had once thrived became ghost towns, their populations fleeing to the countryside for safety. Learning and literacy, once hallmarks of Roman society, became the domain of a privileged few. Think about it. When Rome fell, the Western world lost more than a government. It lost its unity, progress, its hope. Knowledge stored in Roman libraries was forgotten for centuries. Engineering marvels like aqueducts and heated baths became mysteries. Even the concept of centralized rule gave way to feudalism, a system where power was fractured among countless lords and kings. So, why does this matter? Because the fall of Rome wasn't just the end of an empire. It was the end of a vision of a world connected by shared purpose, by innovation, by order. And it makes you wonder, what if that vision had endured? What if the empire had found a way to overcome its challenges, to evolve, to survive? What kind of world would we live in today? What if Rome had never fallen? Imagine for a moment a different timeline. A world where the mighty Roman Empire did not crumble under the weight of invasions, corruption, internal strife. A world where Rome, instead of falling, found a way to adapt, endure, to flourish. Different might our history have been if the empire had faced its challenges head-on, emerged stronger. Consider this. In the 4th century, the Roman Empire was already a marvel of human ingenuity. Its roads stretched over 400,000 kilometers, connecting distant provinces in ways that had never been seen before. Aqueducts carried fresh water to millions of people, enabling cities to grow larger than any that came before. Its laws established principles of justice still underpin legal systems today. What if all of this, roads, cities, the innovations, had been just the beginning? In this scenario, imagine that Rome not only weathered the storms of the crisis of the 3rd century, but emerged more unified than ever. What if emperors like Diocletian and Constantine had laid not just temporary fixes, but permanent foundations for governance, ensuring a smooth and efficient transition of power? Imagine a Roman Empire with a stable political system, free from the endless cycle of coups and assassinations that plagued its later years. With internal stability secured, Rome might have turned its full attention outward to conquer more lands, to strengthen the ones it already controlled. Roads, aqueducts, and infrastructure have expanded even further, making every corner of the empire unprecedented efficiency. Imagine trade routes stretching seamlessly from Britannia to Arabia, the Iberian Peninsula, the edges of the Sahara, creating a network of commerce and cultural exchange that dwarfs anything we know today. What of technology? History tells us that Rome was already on the brink of an industrial revolution. It had advanced water mills, sophisticated engineering, even prototypes of machines that could automate labor. These innovations stalled when the empire fell. Knowledge was scattered, progress was delayed for centuries. In our alternate timeline, however, Roman Empire thrives. If the Romans had harnessed the power of steam engines in the 18th century, in the 5th, if industrialization had begun 1,000 years earlier, consider the cultural impact. Rome was a melting pot of ideas, a place where Greek philosophy, Egyptian science, countless local traditions blended into something greater. If this cultural fusion continued uninterrupted, imagine the arts flourishing at an even greater pace, architecture, literature, and philosophy reaching heights we can only dream of. Perhaps the Renaissance, rebirth of knowledge and creativity, have come centuries earlier, sparking a golden age of human achievement long before the Middle Ages. Then there's the question of unity. The Roman Empire was, at its core, experiment in globalization. Its vast network of roads and trade routes brought people together, fostering a sense of shared identity despite their diverse backgrounds. What if this experiment had succeeded? Rome have been the blueprint for a unified world, a world where differences in language, culture, religion celebrated rather than sources of division. Rome's survival could also have reshaped geopolitics. Without the fall of the empire, the fractured kingdoms of medieval Europe might never have risen. There would be no feudal system, no countless petty wars fought over fragmented territories. Instead, a unified Roman government could have maintained peace across Europe and beyond. Military innovations that once defended its borders might have been directed toward exploration, discovery instead. Imagine Roman ships, equipped with advanced navigation systems, setting sail centuries earlier than Columbus or Magellan. What if the Americas had been discovered not by isolated European kingdoms, but by a unified Roman Empire? How might history have unfolded if contact between the old and new worlds had been established under the banner of a stable and prosperous Rome? Let's not forget about science. Romans inherited and expanded upon the knowledge of the Greeks, making great strides in medicine, astronomy, and engineering. With their fall, much of this knowledge lost or suppressed for centuries. If the scientific method had been formalized 1,000 years earlier, if humanity had reached the moon, not in 1969, but in the 1400s, in this alternate timeline, possibilities are endless. A world where the Roman Empire never fell might have seen technological acceleration, cultural unity, and global exploration on a scale we can barely comprehend. A world where humanity, rather than taking one step forward and two steps back, marched steadily toward progress. But such a vision is not without its complexities. What challenges might such a vast and enduring empire face? One government truly rule a world so diverse? What would be the cost of maintaining such a system? These are questions we must ponder as we imagine this alternate reality. What would our world look like today if Rome had never fallen? Picture a world shaped not by centuries of conflict and fractured kingdoms, but by the enduring strength of a single empire. A Roman Empire that adapted, evolved, and never succumbed to the chaos that followed its fall. What would such a world look like? Begin with geopolitics, the way nations and empires shape the world. Imagine if Rome had found a way to govern its vast territories efficiently, balancing local autonomy with central authority. The Roman Senate, which once represented the voices of a small city-state, have transformed into the world's first true global parliament. For such a system, we might see a world unified not by force, but by shared infrastructure, trade, and cultural exchange. Rome's extensive network of roads, once described as the veins of an empire, could have connected people across continents, creating a sense of shared identity that transcended borders. What if, instead of nations warring for dominance, the world moved toward a unified governance under Roman law? Such unity wouldn't come without its challenges. Global governance might have prevented countless regional conflicts, could also have sparked rebellions on a scale the world has never seen. People from distant provinces, Britannia, Egypt, Gaul, might have resisted cultural homogenization. Rome's vision of Pax Romana, a time of relative peace, truly endure on a global stage. Think about technology. Romans were master engineers, building aqueducts that carried water over mountains and bridges that stood for millennia. This alternate timeline, where Rome never fell, imagine how much faster humanity might have advanced. With roads connecting not just Europe but stretching further into Asia and Africa, trade and innovation would thrive. If steam power, hinted at in ancient texts describing early prototypes, had been harnessed not in the 18th century but in the 5th, imagine Roman engineers building steam-powered machines to revolutionize agriculture, transport, and construction. Industrial revolution, as we know it, might have begun over 1,000 years earlier. Electricity could have followed shortly after, illuminating Roman cities at night, while the rest of the ancient world still relied on oil lamps. What of society? This alternate world, Latin might have become the universal language, a common tongue uniting people across continents. Imagine scholars from as far as India or the Americas writing in Latin, sharing knowledge and discoveries without the barriers of language. Would Latin's dominance have enriched the global culture or stifled the diversity that makes our world so vibrant today? Religion, too, would have taken a different path. Christianity, which rose to prominence under the Roman Empire, might have taken on an even more universal character. What about other faiths? How would the Roman Empire have treated the diverse religions of its provinces in this alternate timeline? Would it have embraced coexistence or enforced a singular vision of spirituality? Not forget the social systems. The Roman Empire was built on a foundation of slavery. Survival might have forced a reckoning with such practices earlier than in our actual history. If Rome, needing to maintain loyalty across its vast territories, began transitioning to a system where labor was rewarded instead of coerced, the concepts of citizenship and human rights have been born centuries earlier, reshaping the very fabric of society. Now think about the impact on modern history. The Roman Empire never fell. The period we call the Dark Ages, centuries of cultural and scientific stagnation that followed its collapse, wouldn't have existed. Knowledge preserved in Roman libraries might have continued to grow, leading to an earlier Renaissance. Imagine Leonardo da Vinci painting masterpieces not in the 15th century, but in the 5th. Imagine Galileo's discoveries about the cosmos coming 1,000 years earlier, inspiring exploration of the stars long before our modern age. What about exploration? Rome's ships, already venturing across the Mediterranean and into the Atlantic, have crossed the oceans long before Columbus set sail. Americas could have been discovered by Romans, ships laden with the symbols of their empire. What kind of world would have emerged if Rome had encountered the civilizations of the New World not as conquerors, as collaborators? Finally, consider governance. This alternate timeline, democracy as we know it might have taken a very different form. Rome, its blend of autocracy and republican ideals, have inspired a new model of governance, one that balanced individual freedoms, collective responsibility. How might human rights, the rule of law, concept of equality, evolved such a world? A world where the Roman Empire never fell, a world of infinite possibilities, a world where progress is not halted by the collapse of civilization, accelerated by the stability of a unified empire. All these advancements come questions. Would such a vast empire truly maintain peace and prosperity, or would the challenges of governance, culture, and human ambition prove too great even for Rome? What would the price of such a world be? As we stand here, thousands of years removed from the grandeur of the Roman Empire, it's hard not to wonder if things had been different, if Rome had never faltered, never crumbled under the weight of its own ambition. The world we know today even be recognizable? Imagine for a moment the sheer scope of its influence. Roads connecting continents, universal language bridging cultures, technological marvels birthed centuries ahead of their time. Along with all the progress, all the unity, would there have been an unseen cost? does it mean for humanity to live under one unyielding banner? The loss of diversity, unique customs, languages, and ways of life that blossomed after Rome's fall been too great a price to pay for global order? Could the Romans have found a way to preserve what made each province special, creating a mosaic of cultures, all thriving under the aegis of one enduring empire? A tantalizing vision, isn't it? A world where the dark ages never cast their shadow, where humanity reached the stars 1,000 years earlier, where perhaps the concept of war itself became an artifact of the past. History is rarely so kind, so simple. For every innovation, every unifying ideal, there's the potential for oppression, rebellion, the ever-present struggle for power. Could Rome have avoided the mistakes that have plagued every empire since? Its leaders have balanced ambition with wisdom, dominance with compassion? These are questions we'll never truly answer, yet they compel us to reflect on the very nature of humanity itself. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Rome isn't its roads, its laws, or its architecture, but its ability to remind us of what we're capable of, both the brilliance of our achievements and the gravity of our flaws. Would a world dominated by Rome have been better? Or would it have simply traded one set of challenges for another? As we ponder this alternate history, we're left with one enduring truth: past is fixed, but the future is ours to shape. What lessons will we take from Rome's rise and fall as we march forward? Next time, we'll ask another question that has shaped our world. What if the Cold War never ended? This journey through history has sparked your imagination. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments, would you have wanted to live in a world ruled by Rome? And what alternate histories do you want us to explore next? Until next time, stay curious.